Hello, with a warm welcome to my podcast, My World, Your World, with tales of imagination and inspiration. My name is Jochen Seitz. I love metaphors and try to paint pictures of our world with various mirrors showing many different perspectives. I invite you to let your thoughts wander, but be warned, if you engage with my stories, you might think differently afterwards than before. And that's precisely my intention. I am normally writing and telling my stories in German language and would now like to join them with the English-speaking community worldwide. So please be a little bit lenient towards my English pronunciation. And yes, I hope to make the world a little better through my stories. Today I am starting with my latest story. It is about a delightful vision of what could be and a special view back upon today's reality. After my stories, I always invite my audience to a short review with specific questions to enable a kaleidoscope of ideas. The today's story is set in an unspecific future of our Earth. To set the mood for this very different world, there is a surprise beforehand, a song created for the story. I had some intelligent assistance with the music, but I think the effort was worth it and the result is enchanting. Enjoy listening and dreaming.
Beneath the dome where living currents flow, we walk in light no war has ever known. Each breath reminds us all that we are so entwined in paths where seeds of peace were sown.
The stones we sit on listen as we speak. The air responds with gentle, knowing tone. No heart stands loud, no other stands as weak. For every thought is felt, yet still our own. We are the echo and the sound, the sky, the soil, the rising dawn. In every soul the whole is found. No thread is lost, no bond is gone. Rivers teach us patience as they wind.
The forests show how giving makes us strong.
We learn that care is not a loss to find,
but how the many keep the one alone.
No crowns are forged, no hands are raised to rule.
Decisions bloom where shared awareness grows. What once seemed power now feels strangely cruel. For wisdom lives where mutual caring flows.
We feel the past like stories in a dream.
A distant night before the heart could see.
Awake at last, we guard the fragile gleam of knowing life was meant to simply be. We are the echo and the sound, the sky, the soil, the rising dawn. In every soul the whole is found. No thread is lost, no bond is gone.
My world, your world, where imagination meets inspiration. Of light and shadow. Beneath the glow of a living dome of radiant energy, the young Sêrijn and his teacher Amah-Resh sat upon one of the soft, breathing stone benches. The air vibrated gently with the hum of the great harmony, the conscious field that bound all human beings to one another. Sêrijn regarded his teacher with the open curiosity that marked all young adults of this era. Amah-Resh, he began, I have read in the chronicles of a time when people lived in separate groups they called nations. Why did they separate themselves? Why did they believe there was an us and a them? The teacher smiled softly, as if retrieving a thought from an ancient memory. Sêrijn, he said, in those days, around the 20th century and long before, people could not feel the oneness. They knew only their individual bodies, their families, their little corners of the world. They believed belonging required boundaries in order to hold its shape. And so they created nations with rulers and governments who claimed to act for the good of their people, while in truth they mostly managed their people's fear. Sêrín's eyes widened. Fear? Is that some kind of confusion? In a way, Amah-Resh replied, it is a sharp separation from the inner certainty that all is well. At that time people felt there was scarcity, even though the earth was abundant. They believed they had to take resources from one another in order to survive. He paused, then added, the form of society you know today, the symbiotic council sphere where decisions arise from collective consciousness, was unimaginable to them. They delegated power to individuals instead of sharing it among all. His voice grew thoughtful. Within this worldview, they developed several systems of rule. One, which they called democracy, became the most widespread. To many it seemed the fairest method available in the world, filled with individualism and a constant sense of lack. Because they could not feel their interconnectedness, they tried to give each person a legal voice, hoping that many separate voices might somehow lead to the right thing. They called this process elections. It arose from the belief that freedom meant deciding as an individual, albeit without sensing others' needs. Democracy was their attempt to bring order to a vast archipelago of isolated consciousness. A step, yes, but one born of separation. Sêrijn frowned. But how could they make decisions without the shared field? Without feeling one another? How could they trust individuals to act for the good of all? Amah-Resh looked at him with a mixture of gentleness and sorrow. Not even that was possible. Most lived in a system called capitalism. To you it may sound like a tale of woven contradictions. In its beginning, capitalism was indeed tied to hope. People believed that free exchange, creativity and personal effort could bring prosperity to everyone, that competition would lead to better ideas, and that individuals could improve their lives through dedication. But what began positively with hope slowly transformed into something else. It became a system that enabled a few to gather as much as possible by exploiting the needs of the many. They believed possession would bring them security, that power and influence could protect them from the perceived insufficiency that hung over them like a dark cloud, and thus they strayed even further from their origin. He sighed. Imagine a group producing food, not to nourish, but to sell as much as possible. Imagine they did not even care if that food made people ill. For a moment, the teacher lowered his gaze as if recalling something particularly painful. And because food, air, water, and the rhythm of life became increasingly unnatural, people did fall ill by the millions. Yet instead of changing the system, they focused on fighting the symptoms, not the root. Their medicine created drugs that offered relief but often brought new harm. Thus a circle arose, a dance of sickness and apparent healing, enriching a few while many suffered. Sêrijn stared as if someone had told him the sky had been stolen. They harmed the earth, gave people food that damaged them, and then created remedies that caused even more harm. But why would anyone do that? Because the system rewarded them, said the teacher. The more they produced, the cheaper they made it, the more they could charge for it, the more they gained for themselves, and often they employed those who were weaker, those who had no alternative. People were forced to trade their lifetime for money, which served only to buy things that brought merely a few fleeting moments of pleasure. Sêrijn considered this. So they created artificial happiness? Temporary, like a spark that instantly fades at the moment it appears? Exactly, said Amah-Resh. And because the spark faded, they constantly sought new ones, expensive clothes, special devices, things that did not need. They called it consumption. But it never filled the emptiness born of separation. Instead, it deepened their dependence. And to sustain it, they took more and more from the earth without giving anything back. They destroyed forests, polluted waters, and flooded the world with objects that lacked meaning, often entirely useless. Sêrijn slowly shook his head, struggling to understand the absurdity of it all. But if everything is connected, why didn't they feel they were harming themselves? The connection was buried, the teacher said softly, and from the detachment came something even more tragic: violence. When people believe life is scarce, that they must fight to survive, they begin to defend, to seize, to harm. Individuals attacked one another, and when entire nations felt threatened, they began something they called war. Sêrijn drew a sharp breath. War? The word sounds harsh, like a blade cutting something apart. Amah-Resh nodded. It means that large groups of people choose to injure or kill other large groups in order to obtain or defend something they believed essential for survival. It is fear in its most extreme form, so loud that it drowns all empathy. And to wage these battles, they created devices meant only to destroy, weapons that grew more deadly with every generation. All the creativity that today flows into harmony, art, healing and understanding was then poured into invention of the sake of annihilation. Sêrijn looked shaken, as if the thought itself had struck him. They use their ability to create in order to end life, but that goes against the purpose of everything. Amah-Resh laid a calming hand on his shoulder. Yes, Sêrijn, it goes against the purpose of everything. And that is why we preserve these stories. They remind us how precious consciousness is, how easily it can darken when people forget who they are. The world you inhabit, without nations, without the longing for possessions, with decisions arising from a shared sense of the greater good, exists because humanity eventually recognized the absurdity of the pain of its old way. Humanity learned to feel again. Sêrijn gazed long into the radiance above them. Somehow, he said, that old world feels like a dream someone else dreamed, someone who didn't know he was dreaming. Perhaps, Amah-Resh answered gently, humanity first had to dream a very long dream in order to awaken. And perhaps our task today is to never forget the value of the awakening. Fear has long been the most potent instrument for guiding and manipulating human behavior. Its mechanisms shift with every generation, becoming more subtler, more sophisticated, and at times more insidious. Wherever fear takes root, clarity grows dim, and people lose sight of their own power and sense of connection. Fear stifles growth. It is stagnation. Yet humanity has never evolved through fear alone. Development has always relied on vision, on the courage to imagine what does not exist yet. If earlier generations had lacked such visions, our world would be unrecognizable today. Every step forward in human history began with someone refusing to accept the limits of their time, and with love choosing a new path. Vision opens pathways, whereas fear builds walls. It is the force that allows societies to outgrow their own shadows. The story you have just heard invites us to remember this truth, that the world we inhabit is the result of countless moments in which individuals choose imagination over resignation, connection over division, and awareness over fear. And even now, our collective future depends on the types of visions we dare to nurture and our courage to share them. Of Light and Shadow by Jochen Seitz. If you like what you have heard, it might be your intention to share my stories or the song. Please feel free and go ahead. Let's push the world towards awareness and humanity. All the best and be blessed.